Hi, this is Echo Chernick. This is the professional artist, and I am at Lilac City Comic Con in Spokane, Washington. And today I'll be talking about doing Comic Cons as an artist. So in 2008, I was in the middle of my professional career as a very successful illustrator. Oh God, I had some really great illustration jobs. My kids were little at the time, and I was super busy as an illustrator. I had some really cool jobs. I was doing work for Miller and Camel, Coors, NASCAR, Trek, advertising work, and I love doing advertising work. Oh my God. I was doing posters and package design and little kids running around. And my husband, who was doing advertising work, was working across the state of Florida. And so he'd be home on the weekends. And then the bigger one was in kindergarten, and the little one I would send off to go to preschool during the couple days during the week, and so I'd get time in. And I'm not exactly sure how I did all that, but we'll talk about that on another podcast, how to juggle little kids and doing illustration at the same time. So I was doing that, and I wanted to. It occurred to me that I wanted to spend more time traveling with the kids and doing things. I put them in summer camp during the summers, and I was working, and all of a sudden I just thought, geez, I don't want to skip to the time when all of a sudden they're 18, and I look back and I think, oh my gosh, they've been in summer camp every single summer, and we never did a summer vacation. Because when you're a freelance illustrator, you don't get to spend any time going on trips with them. You don't get a paid vacation. No one pays you to go on vacation. You just work, and you make your own vacations. And anytime you're not working, you don't get paid. So the cool thing about being a freelance illustrator is you get to make your own schedule. The bad thing about that is that means you're not getting paid for that time. Let me skip over to the weirdness of this artistic journey for a second. For those of you that are illustrators, you'll understand this. For those of you that are beginning illustrators, you'll understand this maybe. And for those of you that are parents or family of illustrators, you probably understand this. When you go into the career of art. When you're high school, or when you're starting out in the career of being an artist, you graduate high school. Usually, most normal people, as they most people when they're going out to career, people expect you to go graduate high school and go to college or trade school or something, and you get a degree, and then you go and you become a doctor or a lawyer or an ophthalmologist or a dental hygienist or a plumber or a something, or go and get a job, or something that has a paycheck, and you go and you get a check, and then you work your so many hours, and then you go at night and you have a hobby, and you do the normal 9 to 5 or whatever thing, and it's a scheduled thing. Artists don't work like that. We work a little different, especially if you're a freelance artist. And for those of you that do that, your families don't really understand what the heck you're doing, and they don't understand where you're getting your money from. And they try to understand. They really, most of them do try to understand, but you got to kind of picture it from their point of view. You're loading up your little somewhat crappy car with all of your artwork that they think looks great, because you're their kid, and they're like, wow, look what my kid did, it's fantastic. And you're putting it all in your little VW Bug or Hyundai or something, and you're gonna go drive to Spokane, Washington for you drive 15 hours in your little car with your friend, and sleep on your other friend's couch, and you're gonna go and set up in this place and try to sell your art to somebody dressed as Batman. okay, I'm not understanding this at all. You know, this is what you're doing. So tell me this again. You're gonna go try to sell this art to people dressed in pajamas, and this how is this going to make a living? You know, they're really trying to understand what you're doing here and how you're going to make a living of this. This is you know, so they're not quite getting this. This is why they really struggle, and they worry about how you're going to make an actual job of this, which is why they keep pressuring you when you come home at Thanksgiving to get a real job. But the good part about being a freelance illustrator is that you have the freedom to go and travel during the summer and to say, you know, I'm going to go do comic book shows during the summer so that I can go vacation with my kids and spend the summers with my kids so that we can have summer vacations just like normal people, and, you know, change the schedule up and do all kinds of things so that when I'm old, I will never, ever sit there and go, what happened to my life? And why didn't I ever get to travel? Why didn't I get to see the world and do all these things? And why did I always, you know, stay in the same place and never get to do anything? How, you know, what happened to my life? You know, we get to do, I mean, I look back and I think of all the cool places we went, and that's so cool. And, you know, I've had so many adventures over the times with these, you know, with them and doing all these comic book shows. And that's just so cool. And I couldn't have done that if I hadn't been a freelance artist all this time. But it's been difficult. It's been challenging. I mean, you know, doing this is not easy, but it's fun as hell. Yeah, most of your parents and loved ones, they don't understand what the heck we do and how the heck we do it. So you just have to give them, you know, be a little patient with them, and you have to stick with your guns, and you have to just, you know, tell them to trust you, and that you have a good family of other artists that will help you along the way, because other artists will help you and they will advise you, and the other artists out there that are doing this, and myself included, because that's what this podcast is all about. It is all about me giving you advice, and the other artists that are on the channel here and that, you know, are in the Artist Alley and everything, they will step right up and tell you all their secrets. They are more than willing to give you advice to help you succeed in doing Comic-Cons and succeeding in this, because, you know, that's my number one advice, is just say, hey, how could I do this? How could I succeed at this? Because they're not really gatekeepers about doing this. If you say, where do you get those sleeves? Where do you get those boards? How do you set up a backdrop like that? How do you do this? Where do I sign up for next year? They're more than willing to help you. It's fantastic. So, oh, sorry, Lazarus just told me my stream started mid-sentence. Sorry about that. So hopefully it didn't start. Sorry, it doesn't start mid-sentence, but anyway, but, you know, you might have missed the part where I said who I am. So too bad. You'll never know who I am. So it's going to be a big surprise. Anyway, but yeah, so we started doing shows. I decided that I would start doing shows with the kids. And so we bought an RV, and we started and we started traveling during the summer with the kids. And the first year I booked like 15 shows across the country. And we did all the way from Florida to Calgary, and some of them were little shows, some of them were big shows, and we kind of learned along the way. And that's where we met a lot of friends and a lot of different artists, and kind of figured it out along the way. And that was in 2008 and 2008, I think. And I've learned a lot since then. And we've tried many, many, many different things and ways of doing things. Comic-Cons actually started, well, they were originally, Comic-Cons were a spinoff of science fiction shows, which started in the 1930s. And the first Comic-Con was officially in 1969, I think, in New York City. And it was New York Comic-Con. And they become more and more prevalent in their comic book shows and anime shows and popular culture shows. That includes all kinds of fan shows, and they're generally made up of different couple different parts. There's the artist alley, and there's the exhibit hall, and then there's the art show. And you can sign up for all for any part of it or all of it. Usually nowadays I'm in the exhibit hall because I have so much art. But a lot of beginning artists are usually in the artist alley. So if you're just starting out, you want to be probably in the artist alley, which is the least expensive option. I think the first year I was in the artist alley of a lot of them, and those tables are definitely the best option to start. But if you're just starting to look for, where you want to, where you want to be, you're gonna want to go and look and walk around the artist alley and talk to people and see their art and see their setups, take pictures of their setups and ask them questions, and see what their setups look like and everything. And definitely go talk to the different artists and talk to the different comic artists, and depending on your style of art, go see what the different shows are like. They're so different. If you have anime style art, go to the anime shows. If you have comic book style art, go to the comic book style shows. If you it doesn't really matter as much the size of the show. That you'd think that would matter, if it was big show versus a little show. Gosh, some of the best shows we've done have been really tiny shows. We went to this show in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it was in a high school. And actually, it was a really good show. And it's because the overhead, how expensive the show was. You don't pay very much for a table at all. And it was this little show, and they don't have much to do in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so it was a fantastic show, and not very many people showed up. So we had about, 60 linear feet of space to spread out my art. So we had tons of space for so much art. And so I had art. I had art for miles, and so we did so good in that show. So not every convention has an art show. I don't do a lot of the art show areas, and you can mail art into the art shows too. You don't even have to be there. Some people do really well just mailing their art into art shows all over the country. You just package it, you mail it, and they do really well just mailing it in. I don't do that really well. I don't do a lot of the art shows. They did really well before they were really, really popular, especially before you could sell a lot online with your smartphone and stuff. But it's still good because people like to walk around the art shows and shop. So it's certainly a very valid way to sell art. So I'm reading the comments here to see what people have to say. Oh, Athena saying that they have you just launched your Etsy store yesterday and you dropped your work off at a gallery. Congratulations. What's your Etsy store link, Athena? You want to put it in the comments? Athena has an Etsy store, they said. Put your Etsy store in the comments there, Athena. So congratulations. So let's see what else. Let's see. I wrote down some comments for myself so that I would some questions for myself. I have kids. Can I travel with the with art shows? I get people ask me about how you travel with kids. They come up and they say, well, I can't really do the shows because my kids are really little. I started doing the shows when my kids were 4 and 6. And actually, I know somebody that traveled. They sell T-shirts, and their kids were 3. And I think they had another one too, but their one was 3 years old, and they used to put her to sleep in a suitcase. They had T-shirts, and they'd lay some T-shirts in the bottom, and then she'd go to sleep there. But oh gosh, our 4 and 6 year old, They were 19 and 22 now. And actually, downstairs manning my booth right now is my 19-year-old. So, fair warning, spoilers, apparently, if you start bringing kids to art shows when they're 4 and 6, they will become artists. Even if at the hotel at night while they're asleep, you stand over their bed and you whisper, doctor, lawyer, in their ears, they still become artists. Not, I'm just kidding. I would never do that, honestly. That's a terrible thing to do. Don't do that. No, seriously, we need an accountant. It was accountant. No, just kidding. I wouldn't do that either. Accountant. But no, no. So seriously, they both became artists because they grew up. They grew up with art shows, and they both actually thanked me like a year or two ago. They're like, "Wow, Mom, we didn't realize that we didn't grow up like normal kids." They had no idea that they grew up like kind of different. They didn't realize that other kids didn't travel as much. They didn't see as much. They didn't realize that the other kids didn't travel the entire country. They didn't see all these things. They didn't see celebrities. They didn't grow up, learning about commerce, about money. They didn't grow up with um, learning about being patient, about setup. And people are like, well, I don't think my kids could sit still for 10 hours a day. And I'm like, they certainly can. So what would happen is they just sit there and play during setup. So we set up our table, and when we set up, I'd set up a little space underneath the table, and they'd have their little fort in the artist alley area. And then during the show, I would tie a balloon around the 6-year-old's wrist, and I'd say, okay, so all the booths in the artist alley would have like a different color on the front of their tables, like a different color carpet, and I'd be like, all right, the carpet here is orange and the carpet over there is blue. I said, so you got to stay on the orange carpet. And she'd be like, okay, easy enough. And I tie it, and they would go, and you'd see this balloon just going boop, 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 all over the orange carpet. And I would, and I'd be selling my art, and they're like, well, where are your kids? I'm like, oh, they're right there. I'd see the little balloon going all over, and then they'd come back. I'd give them some more quarters, and they'd go and they'd go buy buttons all day, or go pick up business cards all day. And I just taught them basic etiquette. You don't interrupt artists when they're doing sales, and you don't, you're welcome to compliment people. And, you just taught them the basic etiquette things. And when they got to be a little bit older, they would make their own art. And then I made them, I took their art and I bound them in a little book that was 2-sided. So basically it was a bound book, which was folded in half. And some of you out there probably have this little book. It's going to be worth millions soon. And the front half was one of them. So they had a cover on one side and a cover on the back side. So when you flipped it over, it was a 2-sided book. So that, and then they sold them for $1, and then they split the money so that, people would come and buy it. They didn't have to buy a book for each kid. They just bought, one book, and they'd still give them extra money anyway. And so none of them would outsell the other one. So they weren't competing with each other. And so they would sell their books. And when they got enough dollars or got bored, they would take their money, and then they would go around Artist Alley, and then they would spend it on the other artists, buying their bookmarks or buying pins or buying buttons or whatever, therefore putting the money directly back into Artist Alley. And they would spend all day doing that, thus learning to, thus learning commerce and learning how to make money and sell money. And they have a really good value of how to, make money and spend money. And they were also allowed to do artist trades with my art. So they would come running up and pick out like one of my Pi Cthulhu pieces. They say, can I take a Pi Cthulhu? And I'd say yes. And I'd spend enough time with them to teach them the etiquette of it. And then they'd go and they would do an artist trade, which taught them how to negotiate. And they were, they learned a lot with that. And I would, follow them once in a while to make sure they were polite. They were fantastic at that. And they really learned so much just doing that. And as they got older, they would be our food runners. And so, kids can absolutely handle it. It's all how you teach them. And, so it was an important part of their childhood. Best practices on getting prints for shows. Okay, so getting prints for shows. We have a printer. Like we have a printer. It's the size of a small car. It's a Canon, Epson. Lazarus, do we have a Canon or an Epson? I don't know, one of the two. He's on the chat, so we have a Canon, I think. He does all my printing for me in house. So Lazarus is the creative director, husband, creative director. He does all my printing and everything for me. And we make all of our printing a Canon Pro 2000, and it prints up to 24 inches wide, and it's a roll printer, and we print the rolls, and we put the roll in, and I do 24-inch prints, and then we have a 17-inch prints high. I try to make my prints to fit in the standard frame size, because that's much easier for people that want to frame them. And then we get all our bags and boards from Clear Bags, which is an awesome place to get your bags printed. I would suggest you get the bags with the safety edge, because if you don't, they like to stick to the fronts of the prints and rip them all up. And someone told me that early on, and that's definitely an important thing to do. And those are the best way to do it. I like to get the archival prints because they're awesome. I like to get my shiny gold prints with the beautiful shiny gold on them from Cat Print. We use 11 aqueous inks plus a color optimizer solution. And if you have any question about how we make our prints or anything, you can contact Lazarus on our Facebook page or our a website. So you can also ask, be sure to, talk to other artists about it too. They're usually pretty open about sharing their information. So, which brings me to the point of what kind of things do you need to bring to shows? That I can suggest two things that number two things you need at shows 100%. There's only two things you need to bring to shows. You need zip ties. Zip ties can fix anything. You can fix anything with zip ties. You can tie anything together with zip ties. I mean, really, you can pretty much secure pretty much anything. You can make a whole booth with zip ties. And an awesome attitude, because really, you can do anything with an awesome attitude. Even if you don't have a booth helper, you can get someone to watch your booth for you. If you need to borrow something, an awesome attitude, you can always borrow something from a neighbor. I mean, really, everybody at the show will be happy to help you if you have a great attitude. I'm serious. I mean, get to know your neighbors, get to know the booth people around you. I mean, they have saved my bacon so many times. I am constantly lending stuff to people. There was one, I'm always lending. I'm always lending my tables, my grid wall, zip ties, booth gear, things like that. And there was one Dragon Con that really, we ended up not having a table for various reasons. It got messed up. I think that was so messed up. And we didn't have a table. And I was just so distraught. And because I'd been really nice to people for so long, all these people in this one row ended up sacrificing like a foot of their table, and there was like a little walk space, and everybody gave me like a foot of table, and we ended up being able to make a 6-foot table for me, because I'd been so nice to them for so long. They were like, oh, let us all scooch down a little bit and give you this little walk space, and we'll make a table. And they made a space for me. So be nice to everybody, and it will come back and it will be fantastic. And they will all scrounge and help you. We help each other out fantastically. And and everybody knows who the jerks are. So just, be really, really nice. And because, it can be really tough sometimes if you're in a bind. So, your display starts falling over, everybody runs to help. And because it's you get tired and you get grumpy, and it's when it's really hot or something. So everybody knows how hard it is to schlep stuff there. I always do all my Christmas shopping at the shows because everybody's bringing all their stuff there and everything. So I'm like, all right, let's do my Christmas shopping down there. But it's just so much fun, and have a good time. It's just it's so much fun. Laz is answering some of the questions in the chat. Yeah, we've always printed our own prints. Some people use Costco for small numbers of prints, but he says that he's heard that they've started dissolving that department. Also, some prints at Costco prints aren't really archival. There's a difference between archival and non-archival prints. Archival prints will stay light steadfast for like 500 years. And if you don't believe me, you're welcome to live 500 years and come back and complain if, it doesn't. Feel free to come back and, I'll give you an exchange. Non-archival prints, you've seen non-archival prints. They start to fade and everything. Can't guarantee about Florida sun. Theoretically, it's supposed to last, but Florida sun is vicious. So I don't know about that, but yeah, it's supposed to stay light steadfast, which means it doesn't fade and get that washed out sort of thing. Sharpies fade after 8 years, I think, or something. That's why you're not supposed to sign your prints with Sharpies. By the way, if you're signing archival prints, you should sign them in pencil, preferably, or the paint inks and stuff. But Sharpies are they turn that yellowish color, but they kind of fade out after I think it's 8 years or so. I've heard. Maybe they changed the formula, but that's what I heard. I think ballpoint pens fade after a certain amount of time too, which is why it kills me every time I see like these big portraits done in ballpoint pen. I'm like, don't those fade? So, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure updated information on that. Maybe Sharpies changed their formula, but I know I've seen old Sharpies on old posters and they turn that yellow color. So, but the best way to sign prints is with pencil because graphite doesn't fade. So, but yeah, if you want it to not fade, sign in pencil. So just so you know. Any other questions? Yeah, there's lots of printers doing foil prints on cardstock now. Yeah, archival is nice and important too. So, traveling wise, traveling can be very challenging with shows. Obviously, your overhead is important when you're doing shows. Local shows are great because they're cheap, because you don't have to, you don't have big expenses. You don't have to worry about hotels. You don't have to worry about paying for, airplanes or anything like that. Someone told me early on, which is really good advice, for backdrop stands, for instance, the telescoping backdrop stands, you'll see people use the photography stands with the legs that you do for photography backdrops that telescope up, and then you can hang like black bed sheets from them and then pin your art to them, or use carpet hooks to hang from them. Those you can fly with relatively easily. They're still a little bit oversized, but if you put them in a golf case, like a big hard golf case, you can check that in oversized luggage and it doesn't count as oversized luggage. You can't go overweight, but you can still put them in oversized luggage without paying an extra fee. So that's kind of cool. That's a way to get around the oversized luggage rules in terms of, shipping those, to bring those with you. So if it's longer, if you're bringing something with you that's longer, but not heavier, you can put it in a golf case. That's kind of cool to know. Just as long as it's not super heavy. A friend of mine also, he ships cargo through the airlines. You can sign up for a cargo account and ship everything through cargo. You can also ship things ahead to your hotel rooms and stuff like that. You can get things, shipped there. We've done that a lot. You can carry things with you on carry-on. You're not supposed to go over a certain weight on carry-on, but they don't usually give you a hard time. I haven't really done enough overseas shipping and stuff to give you a lot of advice on that. So if you want to know more about that, I'm probably going to bring in a guest to talk about that, because I can't give you too much advice on overseas. I haven't done enough of it. But I have some other artist friends that have done more than that. I can bring a guest on if you want to know more about overseas. How important is networking with other artists at conventions, artists and game designers? Oh, networking is very important. I'm terrible at networking because I have face blindness and I can't recognize people very well. So I'm working on that. I try really hard to recognize people, but it's hard. but networking is important. It is important. You do, you should try to get out and meet people as much as you can, because it always leads to jobs, and it's just nice to get that face-to-face time, and especially nowadays, with everything being online and everything, and it's fun. You always get new leads, and people are more apt to hire people they know and go with people they're familiar with and people they like. I mean, you go with what you're familiar with. Um, even you always go with things that you're familiar with. When you go to the grocery store, you're more likely to buy something, buy a brand your mom bought. I mean, you go with the familiar. So if you met someone at a convention, you're going to go with the person you met versus a stranger. So if you hung out with somebody, I became a judge, Illustrators of the Future, because Larry Elmore recommended me. So definitely, go hang out with people. And besides, it's fun. You get to talk art, and you get to learn things, and that's how you grow as an artist. Where does the networking generally occur at the conventions? Sean, you know more about the networking at conventions than I do. I avoid networking because the face blindness, that's something I'm working on. I'm working on the networking. So yes, I have face blindness, and so I tend to avoid the networking situations, because that is something that I struggle with, because like I said, I do have prosopagnosia, and it is hard to overcome, because every once in a while I don't recognize somebody, and it's embarrassing. And so I go, "Oh, hi, I'm the artist." And they go, "Yeah, we went to dinner last night." And I go, "Oh," and I feel really rude, and they feel really slighted, and they go, "Ugh." But I'm trying to overcome that. So you are helping out. Yeah. So where does networking generally occurs? Probably at the bar after hours, I guess, or at Artist Alley. I don't know, where does networking usually occur at the conventions? There's a networking place where the artists hang out. The cool artists usually know where that hangs out. There's usually like a spot. BarCon. It's a thing every night. Yes, BarCon. I'm not a good BarCon person. Also, when I drink, I fall asleep. So I'm trying to be a BarCon person, all right? BarCon, yes, it's a thing every night. You're a much better drinker than I am, John. So, yes, BarCon is a thing every night. And not every convention has a BarCon. So, yes, there is a BarCon where you can go to. I will be in bed by 9:30. But yes, that's a great place to hang out and meet other artists. You don't have to drink. And some artists form their own. There can be cliques, but just go talk to artists. Oh, you cheat. You have water in the scotch glasses? I don't believe you, Sean. So, but just go to the Artist Alley and talk to different artists, and also you can meet people online, and just what conventions? What else? Let's see, other questions. Ask me some more questions here. Let's see. I made some lists. Other things you can get at conventions. Good things you can get at conventions. You can get repeat customers. That's important. The first time you do conventions, you might not do the best, but the next year you should have repeat customers. That's really important, because I remember the first year we started doing conventions, my friend did like really good. And I was like, "Wow, you're doing really good." And he's like, "Oh, it's repeat customers. That's like important." I'm like, "Oh." And then the next year I was like, "Oh, wow, I'm doing really good." And I was like, "Whoa." And the repeat customers are amazing. So just remember that. So they come looking for you, and they are very loyal, and that's really awesome. Also, oh, don't forget to put out your social stuff. Like, make sure you get their Instagram or a emailing list, especially if you're new to conventions. Get that emailing list out there. The very first year, I put like a raffle to get people's email. Because that's going to be important. Because if eventually you want to do a Kickstarter or something, you're going to need that, because Kickstarters, you can't just pop up a Kickstarter and expect it to do great. You really need an existing emailing list, even if you're not going to do one for like 5 years. If eventually you want to do like any sort of project on Kickstarter, an art book or something, you're going to need a pretty strong emailing list to follow up with people. So just start with an emailing list right from the beginning. Just get that pad out there. And even if you're like, here, have a sticker, if you sign up on the emailing list, just get it going from the very beginning. How many pieces should I have to start with? Oh, the very first show I did, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I'd never done a show before. I'd never even been to a show before. This was MegaCon. And this is when I decided I wanted to bring the kids to shows. And so I was like, my friend's like, why don't you go to MegaCon? I was like, okay, that sounds great. What is it? And so I've never been to one, or know what it was. And so I was like, maybe people will like my art. I mean, I have to admit, I was already a successful illustrator at the time. I had no idea what a convention was. And so I printed up 7 pieces. No idea I even needed a display. I just printed up like 7 or 8 pieces, and we went up and I put them on a table. Didn't have a display or anything, and did amazing. Yeah, just with them on a table, and it was like 7 pieces. And so Kat downstairs right now, she's got like 7 pieces and she's doing great. So you can just start out with like about 7 pieces. It would be fine. And as long as you have like a small range, probably around that would be a good start. Eventually, if you have 10 to 20 would probably be nice, and maybe some stickers and some pins would be a good add-on from there. You don't really want less than probably 7 to 10 pieces to start. You start to get up right now, I probably got like between 100 to 20 billion right now. I got like someone's like, they're like, oh, can I see your book? I'm like, oh, here's my book of art, and I got like 4 more books right there. So I have a little bit too much art right now on my table. But I have to kind of really pare it down. I have a smaller booth at this convention, so I had to really kind of focus on what I was showing. But I got like 3 more books next to me if they want to see. I had to pare out what I was showing. I had to look at what the convention was, and right now I've got the cats out and the Art Nouveau, and then I have the really sexy stuff sort of behind, because it's not really a sexy sort of show. And then I have the more mainstream out. So, but when people come up and they sort of look at the sexy stuff I do have out, I say, oh, do you want to see the sexy stuff? Oh, do you want to see the Shadowrun stuff? And I pull out that book. But I have it kind of behind, so you don't ram too much in their face at once. Kind of have it ready, but not in their face. But yeah, so you got to kind of curate. Yeah, I will let you take one out. I let you. I think I let you. Yeah, don't take any out. I let you hide the. Yeah. So yeah, I have like over 200 or 300 works of art, and but yes, Sean, let's do a podcast on networking and how to design your booth. That would be fantastic. So upcoming, it looks like we will be doing a podcast on networking and designing your booth with Sean Nathan Ricks. And how do you combine pieces in the booth with an opportunity to order prints so you can take orders at shows? Yes, I do take orders at shows. We actually have a Shopify store, and you can actually we actually can take orders at shows right through the Shopify store. You just have to remember to mark it as unfulfilled so that Lazarus can actually fulfill it when he gets back to the gallery. And so, any other questions? So there are several ways you can display your booth. There's lots of different methods. It kind of depends on what sort of art you have and where you're displaying. I mean, I will change up my booth depending where we are. Right now I have at this show, because we were traveling with the smaller car instead of my full display. I have several different displays. I have my flying display, which is my backdrops, which has the telescoping display stands. And I don't have those with me right now. And then I have my full display, which has the big full pro panels, which are the 8-foot tall pro panels with the big extenders with the lights. And I bring those to Gen Con when I have my 10-foot by 20-foot booth. And then I have some grid walls too, which are heavy. And then I have my breakdown pro panels, which are what I have with me now. And the breakdown pro panels are they're like half size pro panels, and they actually break. They break in half, so they're like only half size. But I have a 10 by 10-foot booth with me now, and in order to fit those to make a full booth, I actually had to be creative this time and set up the tables and then take the panels into halves and then set them up on top of the tables and kind of use like the zip ties and the Velcro to make it look like it's a full-size booth. So you got to be kind of creative with setting up your booth every show is a little bit different. It'd be a little creative to set it up every time differently. We made a little door with a half of a pro panel, so it opens in the back and swings open like a little saloon door this time. So you got to kind of think about how to set up the booth because your display is a little bit different every time, and you figure out, how am I going to set it up this time to get it to work? And so, a little saloon door, and we're swinging it open, and we're like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get it to set up? So my display is not consistent every time I set up. I mean, some of the shows it is. Like at Dragon Con, my booth is a 10 by 20 booth, which is the same size as a Gen Con. However, because the booth behind me has a pole in it, it is not actually a 10 by 20 booth. It is a 10 by 24 booth, which means I have 4 extra feet of space, which means I got to use the grid wall to fill in that 4-foot space, which gives me a bigger booth, but I don't have enough pro panels. So I got to kind of build this extra space, which is cool. But now I got to like build this extra kind of like skeletal wall space to give myself this extra like room. So it's kind of fun. That's why zip ties fix everything. See, so half the time we're like kind of just tying stuff together with zip ties to get it to kind of go. So it's like, oh, don't move anything too fast. Might all just fall down. All right, question. But for others getting into an art show, are all art show panels the same size? I actually don't do a lot of art shows. I don't think so. Maybe you can answer that for me, because I don't do a lot of art shows that much. I haven't done that many. I did some at the beginning. I did the Gen Con art shows at the beginning, and I've done a few at the. I don't think they're all quite the same size. All right, so some are 4 by 4 feet, and then you can answer this for me. So. See, not everybody has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I never said I had all the answers. So Sean Nathan Ricks is telling me that some of the art show panels are 4 by 4 and some of the art show panels are 3 by 4. Pay attention to the website. So yeah, definitely pay attention. Read all of the art show, all of the materials that art show sends you. So if you're applying for the art show, definitely pay attention to everything they send you. And if you're not sure, contact them and ask them questions, because they can answer. And then some of them are 6 by 4. And definitely check out Sean's game, iMagi. Where can they check that out, Sean? Where can they check out your game? That I'm going to have art in, by the way, and so is Kat. I played iMagi. I played iMagi at MissCon last week. That was really fun, by the way. The iMagi game. You should come on. We should play it. The iMagi game. I like the fact in your iMagi game that you're using already existing artwork. Yeah, or on your channel. So what he does on the iMagi game, this is really, really cool. It's a card game. It's a collectible card game. And a lot of times with the collectible card games, they license the art, they hire you to do specific artwork. and then you have to create the artwork. But he made it's pretty cool. He designed the artwork, the game, so that it's designed specifically to use already existing artwork, and he just designs the card around the art that already exists, and he just licenses like existing art and then just makes cool cards around it. It's neat. So where is it online? Do you have a website for it? Is it just iMagi somewhere? Well, let's see if we can find it online. Sean, where's your link? Sean, where's your link? iMagi. All right, we'll get a link up there eventually. It's the iMagi card game. Anyway, so I'm gonna have my tortoise piece in there from the my tortoise painting. It's gonna be in there. But we were playing it and it was really, really fun. I mostly almost won a couple times, but then Sean swooped in because he knows the card game better than I do. But we'll have to play on his channel sometime because it was a lot of fun. So I really did enjoy playing that though. And for license, so for those of you that don't know, licensing art, is just basically where he just buys the rights to something that you already made, and so you don't have to do any work on it at all. So yeah, definitely pay attention to whatever the art show rules are, and pay attention to all of the paperwork that they send you for loading in and out of the shows. I'm doing what shows am I doing this summer? There's San Diego Comic-Con is coming up. That show's a beast. It's huge. San Diego Comic-Con is just, I think it's used to be 150,000 people, but it's so much. There's just more people that don't even come in. They're just out in the streets just partying that don't even come into the exhibit hall. It's fun, but it's huge. And it does not, the downside to San Diego Comic-Con is it doesn't have a lot of repeat customers. It's like a Mecca sort of thing. People go to Comic-Con and they go to see the stars, and they're overwhelmed. It's just the crowds are massive. And they just packed. If you stop for too long, you can form a line behind you, and everyone's like, "Why are we in line?" And nobody knows why they're standing still, and everyone's just behind you, like, "Why are we here?" It's just fun. You can really mess with people, but they go for the exclusives, and I've made some really good contacts there. I've got some really good commissions for some paintings, and that was fun. And it is neat. It is definitely an experience. That's for sure. Gen Con's my favorite show. That's a big gaming show in Indianapolis. We've been doing that for a long time. And I do a lot of work for the role-playing game Shadowrun, and my Shadowrun guys are there. I love Shadowrun. And I have a big booth there, and I think that's my favorite show. I can't wait. Did a big project this year for Shadowrun. Big project with April Solomon. And can't wait to do that one. And then Dragon Con, also a big show, and that's in August. And what else am I doing? Trying to remember what other shows I'm doing. Oh gosh, the shows. I think I'm doing Rose City. That's a smaller one. And let's see. Oh, looks like we are just about out of time. So, all right. So, any more questions? Well, thank you for joining me this week, and definitely, if you guys have any more questions, let me know. I believe next week we shall have April Solomon, speaking of her, joining us to talk about all the things that we are going to have on this channel for new artists, because that's what this channel is dedicated for. And I will post up Sean Ricks's link to the card game. So, yep. And next week we'll have April on, and she'll be actually talking about all the things that she learned at Illustrators of the Future, and that young artists want to learn about the business of illustration, and all the things we need to cover to make sure you guys are well-rounded and we don't miss anything, and maybe we'll tell some funny stories and stuff. So, but yeah, thanks for joining me, and have a good day, and keep arting, keep your noses up, confidence up, and you are awesome, and you're doing a great job, and just just keep with it. You're doing a good job, so you're awesome. So have a good day. Take care. Bye.